There's two new tax scams for 2021 that you need to be aware of. And then also, how do you prevent being a victim of tax scammers? I've got that and more coming up. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. Tax scammers are in full steam. Very prevalent right now, and they have been for the past decade or more as more and more of the tax process is going online. But guys, with the pandemic and everything from last year, two new tax scams you need to be aware of, and then I'll tell you how to help prevent, because I don't think there's a way to completely avoid tax scams, but how to help prevent tax scams. So what are the first two that you need to be aware of? First, before I get into that, check out this resource here on the IRS website. This is helpful here. It shares the latest information that they have about different tax scams and things, alerting you so that you're made aware. And then also it shares for each of them sort of what the process is. Through the IRS, there's a way to say that you've been a victim of a scam and your identity has been threatened here and compromised. So follow those steps. I've got a link below as well. But all right, the two new tax scams that you really need to be aware of for right now in 2021. And the very first, I've already had a fan of the show comment in one of the other videos about this very thing, and that is filing fraudulent unemployment benefits. Basically, a fraudster using your Social Security number that somehow was found somewhere else, your name, social, maybe your address, they signed up for unemployment benefits using your information. You didn't know about it. You weren't aware, and someone's been collecting unemployment benefits, and then all of a sudden you get a tax form saying, all right, make sure you report these unemployment benefits. And you're saying, wait a second, I never received unemployment. Someone else did. You were a victim of identity theft. They stole your identity, they filed for unemployment claims, and they received that money, not you. And now you've got to report it on your tax return. So I think this is happening significantly. The IRS states that it is. Even a fan of the show, like I said, has had this experience. I think lots of people are dealing with this. 70-some million people approximately filed for unemployment, received some unemployment last year in 2020. I think this was to me, I don't understand how someone could file unemployment and pretend to be you, because there's all sorts of questions you need to answer. And then additionally, they've got to actually get approval, or the claim needs to be submitted to your employer. And so maybe they were just filing for the freelancer or self-employed unemployment. I don't know, but there's some other double checks that somehow these fraudsters got past in order to get away with it, at least thus far. So what do you do in that situation? The IRS is actually telling you got to contact, this is what I told the fan of the show, you got to contact the unemployment benefits department of that state that issued those payments and have them send you a corrected tax form. And likely each state has their own process to share that, hey, or prove that it wasn't me that received these benefits. And then the IRS actually wants you to file a tax return with just the income you received. Now that's read right here on the IRS's website. I personally think that's going to be problematic, because if you file that, the IRS is going to be saying, well, we've got this 1099 here from these unemployment benefits. They're not on your return, and they're not going to issue your refund. They're going to send you a notice. That's my logic. That's what I would have expected based on how what I know about how the IRS system works. But the IRS is saying, no, you don't include that income on your return. Just go ahead and file. This is a big one, because your refund, maybe some stimulus payments are tied to you filing a return. And if you can't file a timely one because you've got a tax form for unemployment benefits that you didn't receive, that creates a big problem. So I would contact your state right away, the state unemployment agency right away, and then maybe you do take the IRS's advice and you file a return without the unemployment income on it. The second tax scam that, from what I can see, is new this year. The IRS actually issued a warning about this in the fall of 2020, and it's a tax scam not to you, but to your tax preparer. All tax preparers have special tax numbers, whether it's a PTIN or it's a ID number for your tax preparer. And the scam is that some fraudsters went out and sent emails to tax preparers saying, in order to validate your company and all of your clients so that they can get their tax returns filed, we need to confirm your PTIN, your ID number. And I'm going to say non-professionals, some tax preparers that I'm assuming were not pros, followed that advice or followed that fraudster's email and actually gave that information. This could expose, number one, the professional, but number two, their clients. And so I would just, number one, be aware of this scam that's out there. And number two, I would tell you this is why you want to be working with a professional, a tax pro, not someone down the street that can do your taxes on the side, or someone that pops up a quick tax branch for 3 months and has temporary employees working out of it, like The Block and like Liberty and some of these others, right? I mean, those are temporary employees. They're not tax professionals, and so when they get that fraudster's email, they might be more inclined to say, okay, let me just deal with this and send it off, as opposed to a professional firm. So be aware of that. And if unfortunately you get a notice that your preparer was victim to this type of scam, they'll have to talk to you about what to do with your return. So those are the two big new tax scams that are out and prevalent and right now in 2021 for tax year 2020. How can you avoid, how can you help prevent being a victim of tax scammers? Obviously, you got to be vigilant with your identity and not sharing social and all that sort of stuff, right? But when it comes to taxes, there's 3 things you need to be aware of to help ensure that you don't fall victim to a tax scam. Number 1, the IRS will never reach out to you by email. And I mean, your email is not included on your tax return. The IRS doesn't even receive that information, okay? And so maybe it's buried somewhere else, or maybe they're gonna start including that with W-2s and blah, 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 but they're not going to reach out to you by email. So if you receive a first contact from the IRS in an email threatening communication with a link or saying contact us, blah, 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 that is fraudulent. Just ignore it, okay? And if you really are worried, contact your CPA, contact the professional that prepared your return. So number 1, don't believe a threatening email. The IRS is not going to email you. Second, the IRS will not make their first contact to you by phone. That's the more, pervasive scam for the past several years. Is you get a phone call from some very aggressive person who is masquerading as an IRS agent, saying you owe all this money, and if you don't make a payment right now, they're going to seize something or shut your credit down or whatever. That is false. The IRS will never make first contact by phone. And one of our CPAs, Ryan Fair, who's been on the Wise Money Show, our talk show, quite a bit, has said, listen, if you've got a tax problem, you likely know you've got a tax problem, right? And so for someone to call you out of the blue and say, you owe all this money, you would have heard about it ahead of time. So the IRS is not going to call you as their first point of contact. So you can ignore those aggressive fraudsters. And again, if you're concerned, contact your CPA, contact the professional that helped you prepare your return. The third thing you need to be aware of with tax scams is the IRS will likely, in every situation that I've seen, make first contact to point out a tax concern by letter. They will send you a notice. Now, if you've moved a lot, that could be tricky, right? But hopefully, if you've been moving, you've been forwarding addresses, and you've been updating your address, obviously you've been wanting to in order to get stimulus dollars and so on. So assuming and hoping the IRS has an updated address for you, they're going to make their first attempt to communicate a tax issue with you by letter, by mail, okay? And that's going to come in a love letter format, IRS notice. This is the return you filed. Here's how we think it should actually be. There's the difference. Therefore, you owe this much tax. And that can be alarming. But that's typically the first and I'm saying typically, but 99.99999% of the time, that's your first communication from the IRS, unless they've tried to reach you by that before. And so anyway, it's going to come by a letter. And typically, from what we've seen, those notices are, the vast majority come from one of two instances. There was actually something you forgot to include on your return. Maybe a 1099, maybe something that was digital, but you never got it in the mail and you forgot to include it or whatever, okay? So an oversight that you didn't have some document or your CPA didn't have the document. The second, though, is an oversight that the IRS makes, and that happens very, very frequently. And so there again, let alone the other scams, but there again, with getting a tax notice, this is why you want to have a professional team in your corner, okay? Because you don't have to fret about that. You simply take that tax notice, work with your tax professional about it. They will work with the IRS and say, what is going on here? Where is this coming from? Was this something that was missed? Was this your error? And they'll deal with it for you and just let you know, all right, here's what happened and here's how we need to resolve it. So work with your CPA, your CFP on that solution, and watch out for those tax scammers. If you don't have a CFP and CPA on your team, and more importantly, if they're not working together, contact one on my team. You can find us online, Korhorn.com, that's Korhorn with a K, wisemoneyshow.com. You can find us there as well, or give us a call, 574-247-5898. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.